listening to Overwatch League Daily, your daily source for Overwatch League news, scores, and more. Here's your host, KickedTripod.
Hey, good morning, Overwatch League fans. This is your Overwatch League Daily episode for April 18th, 2018. I've got a special episode for you today. Today, I sat down with Major League Baseball player and esports investor Trevor May to discuss a very sensitive topic in Overwatch League and esports in general, and that's on overall mental health. And so we're going to take some of his experiences that he's learned as a professional player and apply it to athletes in the Overwatch League, so to look at how we can have better support for players and coaches going forward. That's coming up in just a second, but first let's take a look at the schedule coming up for tonight. We've got the LA Gladiators taking on the LA Valiant, the Dallas Fuel going up against the San Francisco Shock, and the Shanghai Dragons going up against the Seoul Dynasty. That all starts at 4 p.m. Pacific at overwatchleague.com. Now let's go ahead and get into my conversation with Trevor May, brought to you by patreon.com/OWL Daily Show. If you like this show and want to support it, you can do so for as little as $1 a month. That's patreon.com/OWL Daily Show. Hey guys, so I'm here with Trevor May, and we're going to talk a little bit about mental health and esports and Overwatch League and how it parallels to traditional sports. The Overwatch League, while not entirely new, is one of the most robust esports leagues that we've ever seen, and one of the most demanding schedules, not even just now, but as teams start to go to their hometowns and home cities and they start traveling, it's going to get even more so. And nearly every week we hear about players and organization members who are kind of struggling with a variety of issues regarding their mental health, like depression, homesickness, anxiety. So today, I brought in Trevor May again. Last time Trevor was on, we discussed, the professionalism in sports, in esports, and drew parallels between the two. Today, we're going to talk about mental health in esports and traditional sports. And Trev, I'm glad I could get you to take a break from Fortnite for a little bit and getting back ready for the season to join me today, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me back on.
So let's talk baseball. Baseball is a pretty rigorous schedule as well. You've got 162 games in the regular season. You're traveling almost every week or every other week. Have you seen, looking at the issues that we've seen in Overwatch League, where players are incredibly homesick and need to go back home and be with their family and friends, or they're dealing with some anxiety and they're taking games off or whatever. Have you seen this type of I don't want to say like a mental health issue, because I think it has like a connotation, but you know what I'm saying by mental health, like we'll just call it like are they dealing with their mental health in that way? Have you seen that in your experience in traditional sports?
Yes, and it's very, very behind the scenes, because a lot of these struggles our young guys are having are in the minor leagues or right when they're drafted, and they're not in the public spotlight pretty much at all. So, moving away from home, I have some personal experience with that. I'd never been away from home for any longer than 2 weeks, and in 2008, I was 18, drafted out of high school, and then I just one day moved to Clearwater, Florida for 3 months to play baseball. And then when I got there, I realized that there's probably 30 other guys that were drafted in the same year as me, and then there was 100 other guys that were all drafted in other years at just the minor league complex and not at any of the other minor league teams. And you realize they're all just as good as you. So like that became that right there is like oh wow, like how does this work? And you have to learn literally one day at a time. It's the actually playing baseball also is physically exhausting. So you can add in the mental stress of like what your body hurting all the time. But specifically, man, I had a girlfriend back home. She was, I was 18, she was 17. There's no way I could, she could come with me. Like, actually, I didn't have my significant other with me till I was 26, or 27 until I got married. Last year was the first year Kate ever came with me. So, I've been in a long distance relationship for like 8 years of my career, like where I just didn't see that person for half of the year. That was something I learned to deal with, and you kind of develop your like schedule and your what your values and how you spend your time around. And that was just like one small piece of the puzzle. You miss your family. When your mom's your person that anytime you're feeling scared or upset that you talk to, and sure, there's phone calls, but you kind of learn to deal with stuff on your own. It's kind of like having that college experience going. Everyone's afraid to go to college. You're a freshman. You don't know what to do. And then 2 or 3 months in, you make new friends and you figure out how your schedule works. You know where to go, and all that stuff kind of goes away. Not goes away, but becomes much easier to handle. So there's a kind of a minor league system, right? That helps you learn this stuff about yourself, and then you learn to grow, and then the cream rises to the top. That's how you escalate yourself up the ladder, and that's how we kind of sift out people who just can't cut it. And there's lots of guys I know who retired at like 23 because they just hated baseball. They started hating baseball because, like you said, they were having a lot of the struggles they had, and that's just one of the facets of being a professional in anything, is dealing with all the challenges that come with it. And also still performing. That's kind of why it's a two-part thing. It's not just being a great player. It's how well do you deal with stuff all off of the stage or off the field as well, and how well do you develop that side of your life to where the support systems and things and go from there. So the thing is about this is a lot of these guys are 18, 19, 20, 21. Like the oldest guys are even in their early or mid 20s, and gaming culture is very, very, it's not like you go to a field and you play with a lot of other people. Like you're at home in a room by yourself playing. And so it's a lot of like being in front of cameras, learning media training, social skills that maybe you're not used to having. And then you have to be away from that whole support structure that was at that place that you played at all the time. And it's just, everything changes. And it all happened at once to a bunch of younger guys who maybe have never experienced any of this stuff. So you start to rely on your teammates.
So is there any support or infrastructure in Major League Baseball or minor leagues for like maybe more traditional, like you've kind of said, like, just get through it? Is it just one of those things like barrier, like going through a bad breakup, put your head down, take it day by day, and every day it gets less hard? Or is there like, oh, we've got, a professional psychiatrist on staff, or we've got access to this through our players association?
We do. We have some tools, a on-staff psychiatrist that's all the way up through the organization is available to anybody. The Players Association also, off the field struggles, family struggles, money struggles, all that stuff, because minor leagues don't make very much money. And, like when you spend everything you make all year on just rent for just the season, and then you go home and you're not making any money and you have no money, they have systems set up for that too, which alleviating some of the problems that come along with that is causing anxiety or causing depression. So yes, we do have a lot of the support systems, but I'm going to be honest. Baseball is a very machoistic, kind of society, and it's a lot of it comes from you learn toughness from your teammates, and you learn that like everyone's going through that same thing, and then guys will get vulnerable about it, or guys will struggle and find ways to like refocus their brain on what they're doing and start taking small successes as kind of therapy for that stuff. Because playing poorly and seeing other guys promoted above you and all this stuff, it's a constant like staying on track. It's insane. It's something that's always in your head. So honestly, the veteran guys were the ones that I looked to the most, because guys who have experienced what you're experiencing are I think invaluable. So like it's crazy because I just became, now that I've been rehabbing here in Florida for a long time, there's just lots of young guys that have been in the major or in playing professionally for 2-3 years, and they're at Tommy John, and I'm in year 11. So I've become this, I have a handful of years in the big leagues now too, that I've experienced everything kind of there is in baseball up into the point. I've experienced all the levels, all the terrible leagues, all the terrible cities, all the terrible food, all the terrible bus trips, everything. Waking up at 4 a.m. to go to some terrible town you don't want to go to play in some terrible stadium you don't want to play in, for game 100 of 140, and you just don't want to think about baseball, but you have to. I've done all that stuff. So it's on me now. It's my responsibility to kind of notice when guys are really, really struggling and help them get through, because a lot of it is tied to performance, and then that leaks into everything else. And I know that that's what's happening to a lot of these guys. They want to just play for 18 hours a day because they just want to get better. And part of learning yourself is learning how much rest you need, but that comes with experience. And to be honest, nobody's had any experience in the Overwatch League. So it's a unique situation because they're all experienced. They all have the same amount of experience. So there's no one really to lay on. So I think to come back to your question, I think it is important for the teams to reach out and make it very clear that they know what it's like to have to move from, say, Korea to LA, or China to LA, to where not only you're in the United States, but you also don't speak, like you might not speak the best English, and it's hard enough to communicate and give them everything they need to feel as comfortable as they can. And I think a lot of having them live in team houses and all that stuff, that helps. Having a brotherhood, because we have our clubhouse, it's the same type thing. Someone's really struggling, we support them. And that is the most progress that will be made is when teammates are out there for each other and try to listen and make sure that they're making their teammates feel heard, because that's number one thing. Sometimes they work through the thing on their own, but knowing that they're not alone is kind of that kick that helps them get there. But one thing I'm really encouraged by is how video games have a very community-based society, right? Everyone's got their community moms, and right, everyone calls. It's so funny when you go and you go to like a conference and someone that maybe is in a Discord, their mod that kind of helps them put together custom games and all that stuff, they call them mom in real life, right? That's something that's not in sports. Like it's just not there. And so there are those people that do care about you in the community that aren't necessarily maybe associated with your league. So if you play Overwatch, the Overwatch community is a very tight-knit group of people. And there's a lot of people out there that have made it very clear that if you need help, that they'll help you. And I would recommend also reaching out to those people. And there's already a few I have on the top of my head, and I'm not even a player. Something that if I were like had questions about the community or anything, there are people I would go ask about it. So, and lean on those people, and those people want to help. And having some one-on-one conversations with people who've served in that role and want to serve in that role in the Overwatch League, even specifically. I've been asked, like, what can I do to help these guys? This would be a big thing. Just listening and talking and ask them what's up, making sure that that they're there. And that's a big one.
So I guess I would ask, so one stark difference, I would say, between kind of traditional sports and the Overwatch League specifically is that traditional sports, you've had, decades of infrastructure being created and precedent being set of like, hey, if you're going to go and be a professional baseball player, this is what it's like. You know what it's like. When you go to be a professional athlete, it's a lot more dynamic, right? Most players probably didn't know, cool, am I living in a team house when I move to Burbank? Do we have our own apartments? What about practicing? Do we only practice at our facility? Oh, the LA Valiant practice 45 minutes away. Okay. And it changes. It's changed a lot. Do you think that because of the lack of infrastructure and the lack of precedent, do you think that more should be done for these teams and players as they adjust? Or is this one of those things where, at the end of the day, it's sometimes you just got to be able to hit the curveball and, do your best.
Little combo of both. I mean, let's be honest. They're putting together their teams 2 weeks before the season started. So, like, they're just making things up as they go. That's just as simple as that. Some of the teams were a little bit more organized than others. Like you looked at, like, even the support staff, analysts, coaches, are they living in the team houses? Are they not live? And we're getting several places to live. I mean, it's not like LA is the easiest place to go find a gigantic house to live in. I mean, it is, but like, it isn't. Like, it's just anywhere you go, you're just not going to 2 weeks in advance find a place for a bunch of guys to live, and get the internet to a point where everyone can do the things they need to do on the internet. So they had unique set of challenges, and there is like a toss your hands up in the air and say, all right, well, I guess we're eating PB&Js for a week type thing, right? Because there were one time, I'll give you this little thing. One time in AA, we came in from post game, and there was one of those big pans from like a catering pan where you put lots of food, and in the pan was chopped up hot dogs and beans. One pan. There's 25 guys on the team. We're like, what is this? He's like, that's post game spread. And we said, no, it's not. We're not paying you any money. We're leaving. So we just got on the bus and left and figured it out, because there's just a guy running the clubhouse. He just made stuff up. Like that was like and we're in AA. I'd been around for 5-6 years at that point. So I was like, I've never seen anything like this. I saw something new. And there are points where you're like, guys, like, everyone's making this. You got to understand that, and that things suck. But it's very, very important that there's a lot of care taken. And now I'm not intimate with any of the details of really what anyone's living quarters are, how it is now. And I know it's structured a lot. After talking to a couple players, especially with, like, they've really, really solidified their practice schedules, and they're really strict on, like, only playing this much, and we can't really go over, and making sure everyone gets their rest. I know that something the Outlaws do, Jake mentioned it, is they have sleep trackers where they've kind of tested themselves to see what kind of, how long they've been up that day maximizes their reaction speeds. So they're in the tip-top shape. So when he wakes up on a day game, changes every day or every game, which is really, really cool. And I'm like, that's an attention to detail. That's a min-max. That's a tool that the team, I assume, all the players have it. So I'm assuming that the team had something to do with getting it, which is super cool, because I track my sleep and I look at different stuff, but it's the same idea. So the same way that stuff exists, I think that making sure everyone is very clear on what the expectations on them are, and comfortable in their situations to a point where everyone knows this is how it is. Because maybe that uncertainty, that discomfort, that maybe, like, the problem in esports is, like, even in the Overwatch League, the, like, signing rules and how quickly they can get rid of and take players, like, it's still really fast, like, really fast, to where a player could be like, I got released, I literally have no rights now, and I have to leave. Like, that is a possibility. Only a player or two have left, and they might have seen it coming before that. So, like, it wasn't like it just happened for poor play. So, but someone, could just be booted out of a house, and that's kind of how it is in esports. And that's kind of that's an anxiety that just doesn't go away unless you're playing insanely good. Job security is just such a big part of it. And baseball, we're pretty quick too. I could be sent down at any minute, and then I literally get on a flight that next morning, and I just go to the other city. And then I have to figure out all my living stuff and everything. My wife stays back, she figures it out. And that's how we do it. And that's the big leagues. That's the best situation. Yeah. And there's a very small percentage of guys who are like, whatever, I'm on contract, I'm not going to get sent down. But everyone else is like, my job's always in the air unless I get signed to a contract. Right. So, and I can imagine what it's like for these guys. So it is on the teams to kind of say, hey, if you get sent this way, or you go this place, or if we bring you in, this is how we're going to put you in the house. We got food here. This is what you're required to, like, because I'm sure they all there's like a I don't want to say a fee, but, like, everyone's got like a due they pay probably as a household, maybe to bring food together. I don't know how the houses are set up. They might do that. It probably makes sense. Or they have a manager kind of managing like how going to get food and make sure there's food in the house, all that kind of stuff. And if that's all set up and you bring in a new player, then they kind of slot in instead of like, what am I going to do? Right. Which is just a whole other thing. So, and I don't know how the teams have done there, but I know that at the beginning there, they were just like, it was just a bunch of people screaming, figuring out what's happening. And that was everybody. I mean, Philadelphia wasn't even barely ready for the season to start.
Right.
So,
they came in like 4 days before the season started or something.
Exactly. So I couldn't imagine like being the GM for a team for like 4 days in the starting season.
Yeah.
Right. Like actually being the GM with your team in front of you. So again, that part you're like, well, that's what we got to do. And then you need that attention to detail never goes away. And creating those structures will help with a lot of these issues.
So, Trevor, last question, super broad one, but I just want to make sure that you got to kind of say everything that you wanted to say on the topic. Is there anything else that esports should be thinking about from somebody who's spent the last 10 years in, a professional sport with all these systems in place?
Yeah. I mean, we're just retouching on, honestly, it just as much as it is on the teams to help create a great atmosphere for their team to succeed, that is in practice and living and just being comfortable and being healthy. It is very important for the players to also take that same amount of care for representing themselves as well, so that when things aren't the way they should be, that they have a voice in making it that way. Because currently they don't have one. They just don't. So like, for example, if I said, if they were put hot dogs and beans in front of them at practice, they're just going to be mad and then probably eat it. Right. We actually made a grievance to Major League Baseball and stuff that this guy was doing a poor job, and there was like a whole thing about it because that was just not acceptable, and that needed not happen in the future.
Right.
There needs to be so like I said, a lot of the nice things we have that the people we can talk to, and like if our life falls apart, God forbid you lose a loved one, you can't pay for you're in the minor leagues and you just can't pay for all the fees. They went through a long battle with some illness, and then there's a funeral cost and all this stuff. Like, we have a players association that takes care of us or will help us get through that. Those are all things that you don't want to think about, but they've been thought about and they've happened to us. And those are things you can learn about. And if you have troubles with addictive drugs, even everyone chews in baseball, but I've seen less and less people chewing tobacco because we have programs in place to help you quit if you want to quit. No, they're not selling it. That's a thing. That's an interesting thing about us. People would play video games. I know that, there's a good amount of people who smoke cigarettes because it's an anxiety releaser. Maybe that's something you want to quit. None of that stuff exists. So thinking about that, and obviously we can always go back to, you need a players association. I know they're working on it.
That's the theme, right? Yeah.
That's the theme. But you, as much as the teams need to create the best atmosphere for you guys to be a good team, at the end of the day, they want you to play really well, and that's their motivation. Right. And caring about you and your mental health and like how you feel and whether or not you're happy and comfortable it's inevitably going to be up to you. So, and when those two things are working in tandem, man, it's a beautiful thing, and everyone's gonna be able to play as good as they can and make hopefully lots of money, which is not a bad thing for anybody, I don't think.
Right. Well, Trev, I got to thank you again. It's always a blast getting to hang out with you every once in a while and take some of these lessons and parallels from sports and apply it to Overwatch League, man. So thanks again for taking the time with me, dude.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.